Oh.
Hello, boys.
They moved the fader on me. There is a crisis in Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe has had so many of his people shot that he's running out of bullets. America won't give him any, and Great Britain seems to have acquired a conscience specific to this case, so other great armourers to the world, like China, have stepped in to help the old man out. In this country, the only person to retain credit in his dealings with Mugabe was the much-vilified Peter Tatchell, who tried to perform a citizen's arrest on him, and was knocked to the ground for his trouble. Any and everyone in a position of power has tried appeasement, and, when pushed, opted to pretend he doesn't exist. So into the breach jumps our close personal friends and allies, China, who are gift-wrapping 3 million bullets, mortar bombs and rocket-propelled grenades to get the party started. David Cameron may have Gordon Brown in his sights, but Robert Mugabe really does have his opposition in the crosshairs, and thanks to China's generosity, is now unlikely to miss. So thank you, China. Thank you for the cheap plastic toys and the equal opportunities approach to exporting death. There's no shortage of that in the world. Unlike food. And that's China's fault too, apparently, with hundreds of millions more middle-class Chinese consumers, who all want what we've got, and a diminishing supply of food. The price of feeling full is going through the roof. There's 6 billion people in the world now, but in just 40 years, that's likely to be 9 billion. So you'd better get used to feeling a bit peckish. Perhaps Robert Mugabe is doing the right thing after all. In thinning out his own country's population, he is in fact helping to save the planet and the future of the human race by lessening the demand for food, and it's the Far East that's helping him do it. The only trouble is that shortly after having one Chinese arms shipment, you always feel hungry for another. It's the old jokes that are the old jokes. Oh, no end of bad news in the papers today. Oh, I suppose I'll get to that. But one thing that I did forget to do, because you didn't remind me, 3 things, in fact, was this poem that's about times gone by, not some, like, sort of fantasy cricket on the village green and warm beer, jolly old England from the lid of a biscuit tin. This is how life used to be in the early 60s, 70s and 80s. And some chap called in a little while ago, and he read it out, and I've had no end of people asking me, what was that? Where can I get it? Please play it again. I want to hear it again, so I'll read it again. It's the one that excuse me, it's the one that starts, according to today's regulators and bureaucrats, those of us who were kids in the 60s, 70s and early 80s probably shouldn't have survived because, and then it goes on to list a whole bunch of things that we used to do, even without thinking about it, that are now against the law. The other thing that I wanted to get to, amazing on a show that has no content, that I can't think of just doing that on Friday's programme. And also, political comic quotes versus rock comic quotes. Quotes that have the thin veneer of humour, as said by rock stars versus political stars. So we'll get to that a little bit later, as long as James reminds me. You will remind me, won't you?
I will remind you.
0845 6060 973, that's the number. You can text any time you like. It's 84850. I'll say those again, because I know that's a lot of numbers. The phone number, if you'd like to talk, which is preferable, 0845 6060 973. The text number, 84850, if you are unable to chat. Where to start? Oh, blimey. Cabbage or Prince Harry?
I won't do the obvious gag.
Obvious gag? How about Pete Doherty? He was, talking of cabbage, Pete Doherty was pictured in sporting regalia. Pete Doherty's a sportsman. You aware of that? The story was in The Sun, but they also had it in the Star, and they had some fun with it. There was some celebrity soccer six-a-side tournament that various famous people were taking part in. I don't know why. That part wasn't explained. But what was explained was that Pete Doherty put on a football kit and ran about a bit. The grudge match between The Sun and Pete Doherty's Baby Shambles, and despite him, and The Sun says, it ended in a draw, despite him bringing in ringers and a minger, i.e. Amy Winehouse. I imagine working at the... Well, I was about to say it would be tremendous fun, you know, people sitting about the... this is how it probably used to be. People disporting themselves to the pub, repairing, rather, to the pub, and over a whiskey and with a beer chaser, just coming up with this stuff. These days, I'm sure the truth of it is significantly different. I'm sure it's a hothouse of shouting and hell, and working against the pressure of time. But they still managed to come up with some funnies. The Stars comment on it, and they have a picture of him bent over at the knees, looking at the ground as though he's about to throw up. Do you remember that when David Beckham threw up on, I can't remember what the match was now. It's the only part of that match that I actually remember. He threw up on the pitch, and the BBC caught him doing it from a distance. I'll have to get that. I say it so many times. They caught him throwing up from a distance, and they tried to, pretend that it didn't happen. They maybe made, what's his name, the crisp seller in the studio, tried to make a bit of a joke about it, and I thought, oh, that's not very nice. So I turned over to ITV, and they had him, they'd taken the picture, and they blew up the part of the picture that was David Beckham, because the picture got a bit pixelated. So in other words, they didn't have him blown up. The cameraman didn't zoom in on him. So, in the absence of that, they zoomed in on the picture, just to get closer, so that David Beckham throwing up would fill the screen more, as though that's what you want to see. They then compounded the problem by showing it in slow motion. Oh! But that's ITV, your super soaraway sensational telly station for the new millennium. But anyway, the Baby Shambles singer, Pete Doherty, was bent over at the knees, and he looked like he was about to be sick. And the headline from the Star was, Early Bath. I think beaten by the Sun, who had a picture of him looking, I don't know, how would you describe that? Startled, dazed, confused, like he does. And the headline, remember, he's in football regalia, was, Off me head, son. Oh, these are the jokes, folks. First call, Eltham. Hello, Phil.
Hi, Nick. You all right?
Phil, yes, very well, thanks.
Yeah, by the way, before I say what I was going to say, I was watching Hellraiser 2 on a certain cable channel last night.
You were watching what?
Hellraiser 2.
Hellraiser 2, right. I have no idea what that is.
It's like horror.
Okay.
Anyway, the usual happened. Came to the end of the film, and I was enthralled, and credits roll, and straight away someone's telling me the next programme.
Yeah, hey, coming up on the next show. Like they're auditioning to be a DJ. Hey,
yeah, very annoying.
It's really irritating.
Yeah.
And I think that because so few people actually made a difference when they complained about the level of, the volume level of adverts in the breaks, it was something like 100 people have forced the change. I haven't actually noticed the change yet, and I think what they're going to do to sidestep it, I've noticed it already, is they'll play the adverts at the same level as the programmes because because the regulator is insisting on it. But what they'll do is, to grab our attention, they'll play the break bumpers, the adverts for forthcoming shows and so on, much louder.
Yeah.
So as to grab our attention to the adverts that will follow them at the normal volume. I've noticed that they're doing that already. So there are always ways to get around it.
Yeah, because I call it a break bumper, not an ad.
Yeah, and that's right. Yeah, exactly. In much the same way as the Ministry of Defence is trying to redefine the definition of cluster bombs. I'll talk about that later. There's no end of fun coming up on this show. Cluster bombs, cabbage. Oh, blimey, I've got the lot, mate.
Horrific. Yeah, but the thing with the government ads for alcohol, basically recently a doctor sort of said to me, cut down on the booze. And basically I'm drinking this alcohol-free lager now.
Why?
It tastes brilliant. Not the, there's some really dodgy lagers out there.
Yeah, but what's the point of alcohol-free lager?
Oh, because I like the taste of beer. I love the taste of beer. And so you can enjoy it without the damage of the alcohol.
Right, all of the bloating and fat-giving properties, but none of the actual pleasure. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Oh, but the calories is a third of that with alcohol.
Right, so still an enormous amount. Yeah.
Wow, 80 calories for a bottle. It's not that bad.
And so how many bottles? 6, 7. Yes. It's like a meal. It's like having an extra meal. But go on.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're drinking this alcohol-free lager. I've never understood that myself, but carry on.
No, but you can get, I won't name names, but you can get sort of mainstream lagers.
Yeah.
0.5% alcohol. They
Right.
taste absolutely brilliant.
Pointless. Just have a water.
Yeah, but I
I don't like water.
It's boring.
Well, the thing with beer is that it makes you thirsty because it has that, it dries you rather than refreshes you. It refreshes you on the tongue, but once you've swallowed it, you feel like having more liquid. And I think that's one of the few drinks that are like that.
Right. Isn't that a diuretic you're thinking of, like caffeine and alcohol?
Oh, it is a diuretic as well, but it also makes you, it just sort of dries your mouth out, beer, doesn't it? Unlike opal fruits, which are made to make your mouth water.
Yeah.
They're coming back for a brief period, or they're not actually coming back, so they never went away. They're just going to change the name back again to get a summer sales spike.
Or Snickers.
Sorry. Snickers, exactly, yeah.
What are they called at the moment, then? May I ask?
I've got no idea. What are opal fruits called at the moment? Oh, Victoria knows.
Starbursts.
Starbursts.
But that doesn't rhyme with made to make your mouth water.
No.
That's no good.
Starbursts? No, it doesn't scan at all, does it? That's rubbish.
Rubbish.
Yeah. Anyway, is that what you called to tell me?
Yeah.
That alcohol-free beer is great?
Yeah.
Well, you're completely wrong in that respect.
Oh, fair enough.
Better luck next time. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Nick.
0845 6060 973. It's 7:45. LBC Travel with Alan Joyce.
Thanks, Nick. Still some problems on public...
I enjoy working with people.
That's right. So, ever witnessed any misbehaviour by the royal family?
No.
Well, I'm not asking you.
Oh.
I'm asking them. You know, the ladies and gentlemen at home. Have you ever witnessed scenes or what's the word? Any? Oh, blimey! Searching through the dictionary, I came up with any. Isn't that awful? Any bad behaviour by the royal family? I have personally, myself, and I. Not by a minor member of the royal family, but by the top and her husband. Harry, of course, is no stranger to it. Prince Harry could face a police quiz, no he won't, over claims that royal minders raced after his car at 100 miles an hour as they drove to a nightclub. Harry, 23, was a passenger in an £80,000, 187-mile-an-hour sports car, was said to have torn down a motorway fast lane in a blur. Where was he going? That's right. He was going dancing. One driver, Tim Williams, moved into the fast lane after the Audi R8 had passed him at what he claims was 100 miles an hour. So he's driving along the motorway, minding his own affairs, and after this car charges by him, and you've experienced that yourself, right? You must have done. Like, you're pootling along the motorway at the perfectly reasonable 80 miles an hour, and somebody charges by at 100, 120, something like that, and your car rocks in its slipstream. You think, blimey, that bloke's a nutter. Well, the nutter in question was driving Prince Harry. Tim Williams, he moved into the fast lane after the Audi had passed him at what he claims was 100. He soon had the Royal Protection Officer's unmarked Range Rover inches from his rear bumper. Tim, with his wife, their 8-month-old tot, and his sister-in-law had to drive at similar speeds until the middle lane traffic eased up and let him get out of the way. One officer angrily shook a fist at him. All this happening at 100 miles an hour. As the Met and Thames Valley Police began probing the M4 scare in Slough... Oh, yeah, I bet they've got a big team on that. The company director, Tim, 33, fumed, how dare they put the lives of motorists at risk. They intimidated me and my family. And that's happened to me, too. I mean, you'll be bombing down the motorway and some Burke will be inches behind you, flashing and waving his fists at you. The amount of the people that wave their fists at me when I drive casually around town is shocking. I haven't been in an accident myself. I've seen loads of them in the rearview mirror. The Range Rover was ridiculously close, he says. I thought they were going to nudge me. It was frightening. He realised it was a police car when they turned on the blue flashing lights on the radiator grille. Tim caught up with both cars at traffic lights near West London. He said the prince tried to hide by wearing sunshades and covering his face with his hands. His driver pal, meanwhile, was speaking on a mobile.
What?
Later, Harry was seen at Kensington's Boo Gees nightclub. Tim took down both vehicles' registration numbers and reported the May the 10th incident to the police. Clarence House and Scotland Yard refused to comment, but a Met source confirmed the probe and said, "The Royal Protection Squad's accountable to the public just like any other police officer." Oh, you've got to have a laugh, haven't you? Right, so that'll be the last we hear of that. It'll also be the last, by the way, that we hear of the MP's expenses. Do you know that under the official you can find out anything about our Wicked Ways Act? Unless we really don't want to tell you, in which case we'll just pretend that the information doesn't exist. What's that called? The Freedom of Information Act. Yeah. Is there any freedom of information?
No.
No, not really. Not if they don't want to give it to you. No end of information if it reflects well upon them, but not if the reverse is true. And under that Act, newspapers have been asking what certain named MPs have spent their allowances on. Expenses claims by Tony Blair are one of the pieces of information that have been asked for. After a really long period of asking, during which the Speaker of the House went to the High Courts, spending our money trying to keep this information secret, which doesn't seem right. I mean, if they want to keep the information secret, surely they, and it's essentially personal information, then they should use their own money. But no, they used ours because, well, you know, in the same situation, we'd probably do the same. Now the claim is that hundreds of expenses claims by Tony Blair have been, now I'll give you an option, handed over to the newspapers for printing and general dissemination. That's A. Option B is shredded. Which would you choose? That's right. B. The claims and receipts relating to the former minister's final year in office were destroyed, even though a legal battle to have them published was continuing. I mean, that's just almost speechless, which is a shame because I'm doing a talk show. But really, I mean, it's just beggars belief.
Well, these things happen. You mean to put something in the post, you put it in the shredder.
The Commons authorities have now been instructed to publish details of all MPs' household expenses by the end of the week. But Westminster officials say that the Blair documents were destroyed by mistake. Oops! They didn't realise that they were the subject of a legal challenge. Right. Well, it's been in the papers. It's already known that Mr Blair claimed £43,000 over a 3-year period, although no idea is known about how the money was spent. Expenses campaigner Norman Baker said, "How convenient that some of Tony Blair's expenses have been shredded. This is either incompetence or obstruction of the Freedom of Information Act and should be properly investigated." Oh, yeah, they'll investigate that. They'll write their findings down on a piece of paper and stick them in the shredder. It's a joke. The Speaker, on the other hand, was also under fire from the press about his wife's trips to the shops, and they said, "Oh, we'll investigate that fully." And when they said that, I thought, "Oh, yeah, right, sure you will. Oh, was she going to go down, is she? She's going to do time for it, is she?" House of Commons Speaker Michael Martin was cleared after a sleaze investigation triggered by his wife's spending thousands of pounds of our money on taxis to go shopping. Mary Martin was entitled to claim for the cabs out of a £2,500 a year expenses allowance set up to help her assist her husband in carrying out his official duties. Now, if you had a job and you were paid, I don't know, let's say £138,000 a year, and you had a free house which was redecorated at a cost of £700,000 with our money, don't you think that you'd have enough cash rolling in to be able to afford your own taxis to go shopping, regardless of whether it is actually associated with your official duties or not? I mean, say you're screwing your face up.
I had an itch, sorry.
Oh, right. I'll continue. The allowance, funded by the taxpayer, was set up 6 years ago so she could buy food, clothes and ornaments for formal functions at the Speaker's home in the Palace of Westminster. Clothes? Ornaments? But in an interview with the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, John Lyon, Mr Martin admitted that some of the groceries were bought for personal consumption as well as hospitality. Guilty! The couple also paid for goods out of their own pockets. Oh gosh, how generous. Prompting speculation that they were not bought for official entertaining, which could have been claimed back through expenses. The taxi allowance emerged yesterday as the watchdog cleared Mr Martin of abusing MP's taxpayer-funded perks for allowing his wife to spend nearly £4,200 on cab journeys for shopping. Mr Lyon dismissed a complaint about taxi trips, saying the journeys were reasonable and value for money. Wow. And within the cost limit set by Commons officials. Taxpayers Alliance said the Commissioner's report suggests these trips were more for food for the Martins than for official functions. If so, it's shocking that they're able to use taxpayers' money for taxis to do their domestic grocery shopping. If this is within the rules, then the rules urgently need tightening up. And I think that's the big problem here. All of these things, all of these dubious practices by everybody that's is within the House of Commons are, oddly, within the rules. Well, they shouldn't just have a happy smile about that and pat themselves on the back that they've done nothing wrong. They need to change the rules. 97.3 LBC.
For holding. Your call's important to us.
Epsom, hello, Chris.
Hi, Nick.
Yes, Chris.
I thought I was pretty much beyond surprise at what Whitehall does, but the shredding of Blair's expense sheets is just incredible. While there was this incredible court case, and the first time the Speaker's ever gone to the High Court to try and stop the people getting information that really we should be in the public domain. They voted for it.
Well, it's our money.
Yeah. Listen, all the other things they've done where they change it for themselves and not for us. They made us all have red European passports, except MPs. They get to retain their blue ones. They expect public service workers to have 2.5% pay rise at the moment, while they're trying to push through 28% for themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
They ban smoking in every licensed premises in the country, except the bar at the House of Commons.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's the only bar in the country that got dispensation.
Really?
Yeah. It's just...
It gets wearying after a while, is what it is. I mean, you just sort of shrug... I mean, it's the nature of the people in this country. We just... We'll put up with anything. We just shrug our shoulders and go, oh, well, what can we do?
Well, something that desperately needs to be done, because not just myself, but I've got a wide circle of friends from all walks of life, and everybody is getting fed up with politicians. And I think the only way to move forward would be to have a completely independent body setting the rules and the processes by which these people serve us.
Well, unfortunately, they have done that, and it didn't work too well.
It's not independent, though, is it?
Well, quite, yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right, yeah.
In Parliament. It needs to be independent. They have oversight bodies in the United States. I lived in New York, and they have oversight there of what their public officials do.
Yes.
And they're very tough on it out there.
Well, they seem to be very tough on a lot of things that we aren't here, like commercial crime and, many other aspects of public life. They seem to be much hotter on the behaviour that is allowed. In this country, you can get away with pretty much anything.
Well, I mean, there are striking differences. I mean, if you look at the problems we got with the amount of cell space we got in the prisons, for instance, if you work it as a percentage of the population, pro rata with America.
Yeah.
We and even if you go back 10 years, our population has increased by 8 million, is it, in the last 10 years? But our cell space has not increased. Well, it just doesn't work, does it?
Yeah, but the prison thing is a difficult one, because apparently we put more members of the of our society in jail than any other country in Europe, bar one of the old Russian bloc countries. I can't remember which one it is, which is an incredible thing to conceive of, really. I mean, we're putting people in prison with at an amazing rate, and it doesn't seem to be enough.
Well, I think, yeah, I understand what you're saying. There are certain crimes that don't warrant custodial sentences, where sentences in the community or rehabilitation or whatever can, I think, be better. But as for last week, I remember picking up the paper and reading about the two knifings in the one day. The two people died in one day last week.
Yeah.
And it was the same day that the politicians had instructed the law lords, the judges, not to jail young men that were carrying knives.
That's right. Yeah, it was a bad day to try and bury bad news. Yeah.
We have got some really, really big problems that just don't seem to be being addressed at the moment, and I think a lack of faith in our public servants. And people forget they're or they seem to forget. We don't. They seem to forget. We seem to do nothing about it. They're public servants.
Well, you're absolutely right about that, and that is not just relevant to the people in the Houses of Parliament, but I think it goes all the way through British public life, right to the lowly local councillor who seems to spend his whole life being sucked up to by the people who are spending his money, because he has the ability to ruin your life if he takes against you and makes decisions that don't go your way, whatever it might be, tagging your bin or refusing you to nail a kitchen on the back of your house or whatever, then suddenly your life is much worse off. I think there's far too many people with too much power over us and no controls over how they use that power. Chris, I've got to go, but thanks very much. All right. There was a few things that he brought up there. One was the chap who oversees the MPs, the anti-sleaze watchdog. And it was quite right what he said. He was appointed by Gordon Brown and was accused of being a poodle with little power to tackle ministers. A report by MPs concluded that Sir Philip Mower, M-A-W-E-R, Mower, it's a difficult one, I'm going to say Moore. He was appointed by the Prime Minister last July, had very little independence. In fact, he could investigate allegations of misconduct by ministers only if specifically asked to by Number 10. Isn't that great? He's the anti-sleaze watchdog. In a damning verdict, the All-Party Committee concluded the post of independent adviser meets none of the criteria we associate with independence. It said Sir Philip was of limited value and his hands are tied, adding that this was damaging his credibility in the eyes of the public. Well, not really. No one's ever heard of him. He's the supposedly the force for good on our side, and we're not. His credibility isn't being damaged because we don't know who he is. The findings are a devastating blow for Gordon Brown, who took power last year with a promise to sweep aside Tony Blair's era of spin and rebuild trust in democracy. Has he rebuilt trust in democracy? Sir Philip was appointed to police the Ministerial Code of Conduct, the rule book by which members of the government must abide. His remit involves advising ministers on conflicts of interest and investigates serious allegations against them. But today's report, or this was about a week or so ago now, casts serious doubt on his effectiveness. It said that the former Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards had no power to launch his own investigations, no staff of his own, no office, and no budget. Sir Philip could also be dismissed by the Prime Minister at any time on any grounds. I mean, come on. So they've got to watch a sleaze watchdog in name only. He hasn't even got an office to put his name on the door. Oh, that is just comical. It's just another example of one of somebody in power saying, I'm gonna, and then that's the end of it. Because the papers will slavishly print anything that you send them as a press release. Oh, they'll just pull it off the fax machine and they'll stick it right in the newspaper. They won't check any facts or anything. If you want something in the newspaper, just send them a press release. They'll put it right in. So the press release said, oh, we've got a watchdog now. Now we're really going to be standing up straight and minding our P's and Q's. But they've appointed a guy who he hasn't got any money, he hasn't got an office, he hasn't got any staff, and he can only act if directed to do so by the Prime Minister. Well, what's the point of that? I just give up sometimes. The other part of what he was saying was putting people in prison. That is a pretty shocking statistic, that we do put more people in prison than any other country virtually in the world. I think you have to go to America. Or maybe not even there, because their population is significantly bigger than ours. Do they put more people in prison per head of population? It's a close-run thing. But bizarrely, it doesn't seem to work. And people are just now beginning to come to terms with that. And they're thinking, the politically unthinkable, well, maybe we shouldn't be sending so many people to jail, because it doesn't seem to make any difference to their future criminal career. In fact, it seems to be making things worse. Now, this, of course, won't go down well with the Daily Mail or the Sun or people on the street or anything like that, because the mood of the nation is very right-wing at the moment. Well, to be fair, it's always kind of right-wing. We dress it in a little liberal green wrapping, but we're actually foamers. And just look at the papers that we buy. And it's a perfect example of how right-wing we are. Which is the most popular newspaper in the country? It's the Sun, it's right-wing. The Mail, right-wing. Telegraph, right-wing. Which are the left-wing papers? The Guardian. How many people buy that? 6! 6 people, and they're all at university. So yes, we do feel, let's put them into prison, let's string them up. If we can't do that, then we'll put them away for life. But apparently that is not working, because that's what we've been doing over the last 10 years or so. And the levels of crime have been going up and ever up. So how about punishment fitting the crime? And very occasionally you'll hear something, you think, oh yeah, that's right. Not tag him because he put a cabbage stalk in the kitchen waste bin, blimey. How about this? A teenager who had to be rescued by the emergency services after he stole a boat at night and became stranded is 1,000 miles into a sponsored walk around Britain to repay the £20,000 cost of the operation. How perfect is that? Seb Green, 18, was 15 when he and a friend stole a rigid inflatable boat from Weymouth Harbour in Dorset. They rowed out to sea but became grounded in a lagoon, and they clambered out and got stuck in deep mud. A passer-by heard their calls for help. 2 helicopters and 2 land-based Coast Guard teams and 2 lifeboats, comprising dozens of rescuers, went to his aid. Having been sentenced to a supervision order, you see, it's like one of those things, we'll ask you politely if you wouldn't mind not doing it again. Seb decided to go further and raise 20 grand to pay back the community. How about that? He decided to spend nearly a year walking 5,821 miles around Britain with his border collie, Flash. So nobody asked Flash if she wanted to go. Just got dragged along anyway. He's reached Arbroath in Scotland, having covered 1,000 miles, but said, I've realised that the country is bigger than it looks. And there's a picture of him looking suitably chastened. The punishment fits the crime. Let's have some more of that, please. 8:15. LBC Travel with Helen Austin.
Thanks ever so much. Well, Virgin...
It's a good idea to get someone else's opinion.
You can text if you like as well. There's some texts are coming in. Dear Nick, why are you so secretive about where you live? Neasden Mick asks. I'm not secretive, it's just not information that I want to share with the general public. It's kind of the same. I'll write it down on a piece of paper and stick it in the shredder. How's that? Hi, Nick. Mugabe backwards is Ibargum. Ibargum. Hey, you know what? It is. And there's one about alcohol units. Now, of course, this is have you seen those comical ads? Well, I thought it was quite funny. The one about it's a giant blow-up of a woman's face. It looks like a cross between Les Dawson. Well, it looks like Les Dawson doing a women's act, all ruddy of face. And says, if you drink like a bloke, you'll end up looking like a bloke. Made me laugh out loud. It's hilarious. But I'm sure it was intended to be amusing and frightening at the same time. This is about the units of alcohol. Did you know that the unit of alcohol is not a standard definition? No, I did not know that. I know that different countries have different suggestions of what it is that you should drink to remain healthy. But the UK is, apparently has one of the smallest unit sizes compared to similar countries. 8 grams of ethanol compared to 10 for Australia, makes a unit of alcohol, 12 for France and Italy, 14 in the US, and 19.75 in Japan. Right, okay, James, let's buy an airport ticket. Let's go to Japan straight away. Come on, let's go. It's all arbitrary nonsense, says John, and a cack-handed attempt at social engineering. Well, it is arbitrary, and I didn't know that the alcohol units were different size to different countries, but I do know that what different countries' medical professionals suggest that is a safe limit to drink does vary enormously between different countries. This is not something that the medical community has set in stone and says that if you drink more than this, your liver will explode out your back. What the Japanese say, and what the Americans say, and the French and the Italians and every other country in the world says is the safe level is not the same as what our government is saying is the safe level. They essentially just made it up. Well, if that's not too bizarre a statement, because how could they possibly know? The only way to actually know would be to take, let's say, 1,000 people, split them in half, have one drink to their heart's content, and have the other group not drink anything at all. Actually, that wouldn't tell you either, because you'd have to get many more than that and specifically regulate how much each one drinks. And so you couldn't treat human beings like that. Of course not. So you're left with subjects telling you how much they drink when they're presented at hospital with problems that are booze-related. Now, hands up anyone who's actually been honest when the doctor has asked you how much you drink. Oh, drink? What's that? Alcohol? Never touched my lips. I've never been honest. Neither has anybody else. And so we always underestimate, of course. And so when you present your liver at the hospital, the texture of basalt rock, and say, well, I only have a couple of glasses of Chardonnay of an evening, then the medical professional will assume from that a couple of glasses of Chardonnay of an evening will turn you into a dead person. Well, that's just nonsense. The whole thing of it is based on misinformation. Correct me if I'm wrong. 0845 6060 973. Hello, John.
Hello, Nick. How you going, mate? All right?
Yes, very good, thanks.
Nick, just a quick call, mate. I was just going to put a couple of points. I find it a little bit rich. I understand about these units of alcohol and that for people. Obviously, you know, it's for health and that. But I find it a little bit rich that the government are endorsing this and backing it when they don't even seem to follow their own advice. Because they've just spent, correct me if I'm wrong, £500,000 on a new wine cellar for the House of Commons.
Yes, they did something like that, yes.
So that's just one point. And the other thing about the lost Blair receipts, about the expense receipts or whatever, that apparently went through a shredder. Well, surely that's nothing to worry about. It must be in Sherry's book, and everything else is.
Well, I suppose we'll find out. Well, actually, we won't, because I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be reading it.
Oh, no, I'm definitely not reading it. Nick, just heard a quick one. I've just heard on the news, through your news tonight, that they've, those people that was arrested on the bus for all those weapons, was it 20 people with 16 weapons?
Something like that.
How can they release them on bail?
Did they do that? I was doing something else while the news was on. I knew that they would, of course, because they always do. I don't know. They probably didn't have anywhere to put them.
So what's the idea? So what, they can just go out and then rearm again and then just go and do what they was going to do in the first place?
That's the message.
Okay, I thought it was me going mad, Nick, but I'm glad you just endorsed it.
It's all of us, John. We're all going mad. Thanks anyway, all right.
Cheers, Nick. No,
0845 6060 973. So they let them out on... so essentially, they just waltzed off. That's the new crackdown on carrying weapons in public. We'll ask you politely if you wouldn't mind not doing it. And if you do it again, we'll really ask you politely if you wouldn't mind not doing it. That's the message they're sending out. That'll teach 'em. And you just think, oh... Well, you just sort of give up after a while, don't you? And think, oh, what's on telly? Oh, Coronation Street's on in a minute, I'll go and watch that. Who cares? And you just think, oh, I can't take this anymore. It's all bad. It is actually all bad these days. Food, literal food wars breaking out all over the world. Water wars will be next. Barcelona will declare war on France because they haven't got any water in Barcelona. They're shipping it in by boat. Can you believe it? And, of course, we are at war with the bin man, who has been given... it's another example of one of these people that are essentially public servants because they're being paid for by us, whether or not they work directly for the council or our contractors. It's our money. And it's not the bin man's fault, though. They're just... it's like... well, this is an awful parallel, but like Nazi soldiers, they're just following orders. And they're tagging people left, right, centre for the tiniest infringement of some arbitrary, silly rule, like the cabbage man. A pensioner has been boycotted by bin men because he placed cabbage stalks in his garden waste bin. Cabbage. Where does cabbage come from? Oh, yeah, that's right, the garden. So he's got different bins for different things. You've got the kitchen waste bin, you've got your garden waste bin, you've got your... Oh, blimey, I don't know. I don't bother with any of that. I just put it in the bin. We do have a recycling bin where I am, but you can put everything in it. The list of things that you can put in this recycling bin on the outside include everything that any reasonable person would ever want to throw away, with the possible exception of nuclear waste. Everything goes in this thing. So in other words, they just take it and put it in a landfill, like everything else, which I suspect is exactly what's happening. I mean, they go to all this trouble of, it's just... Oh, is this conspiracy theory gone a step too far? But all of these, we'll fine you if you put this thing in the wrong bin, and we'll fine you if you don't put your bin lid down, and we'll fine you about this, that and the other. And half of me suspects that they just collect it all in a big giant hopper, and they just drive it out to Essex and put it in a hole in the ground. Is that an unreasonable assumption? Anyway, this pensioner's been boycotted by bin men because he placed cabbage stalks in his garden waste bin. He grows his own vegetables in his garden. But so he put the stalks in the bin so the council would take them away for composting. Perfectly reasonable. You with me? So he put the garden waste in the garden bin, which is against the law. Norwich City Council bin men refused to empty Mr. Freezer's bin. What? Mr. Freezer? Wasn't he Batman's nemesis, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yes.
Mr. Freezer. They classified the stalks as kitchen waste. Now, we could be up all night long discussing where garden ends and kitchen begins, but if it grew out of your garden, surely it's garden waste. They also attached a red tag to Mr. Freezer's bin as a sign that he repeatedly ignored recycling rules. Mr. Freezer said, "I cannot see why it comes under kitchen waste. When did you last buy a cabbage complete with a stalk?" Cabbages have stalks. I have no idea that... I don't even know what cabbage looks like when it comes out of the ground. Is it like a tree? It's like 1 6-foot stalk comes out of the ground with a tiny little cabbage on the top of it. I've got no clue. But then neither does anybody else. You hold up a potato in a class of children and they won't have any idea what it is. They'll know what a bag of chips looks like. Jamie Oliver did that very same thing. He held up an onion. And they had no clue what it was. There's something as staggering as that. I think it was an onion. They didn't know what a pepper was, a courgette. They were complete strangers to. So you tell me that the general public will know what the stalk of a cabbage looks like, and I'll call you a liar. Do they grow straight out of the ground on one stalk, or is it like a tree, like a cabbage tree, and you pluck them like apples? You know, in much the same way as you harvest pasta, for instance. Mr. Freezer, behave yourself. So there's that. It's just slightly too early to take another call. I always do this. I always sort of end a story just slightly too early. Oh well, never mind. There's all sorts of other things I would like to get to. Waste being perhaps the theme of the day, and Quangos got a kicking in the Sunday Times on this weekend. a story which was picked up by a lot of the papers today. Am I right in thinking that the government takes £1 billion in tax every day? It's probably gone up since that statistic was last published, because they found ever more exciting ways of taking tax from us. But it's something like that. £1 billion a day. How many days are there in the year? Blimey, it's almost 355. So 100 billion would represent a third of the tax that's being taken in this country. If I've got those statistics right. A third! Now, guess what they're spending a third of the money that we spend in, that we give them in tax? Quangos. Unelected government bodies, many of whom are reproducing the work of other unelected government bodies. They're doing it twice, sometimes 3 times over. £100 billion a year. You might as well take a third of the tax money that you give the government and set fire to it. LBC 97.3, it's 8:30.
Hello?
You can text as well if you like. It's 84850. Text says 500 millilitres of 9% by volume lager. It's 4.5 UK units. It says so on the tin. It also says best shared well chilled. I'm well chilled, but I'm not sharing it with anyone. Thanks, John. Here is Catford. Trixie.
Hello. I like that one. I nearly went and said hello, like that nice little voice at the beginning of the segment. I know about cabbages.
Do you?
Yes. Not a huge amount, but I know enough to be able to tell you they grow close to the ground, rather like lettuces, and there's just one per plant.
One per plant, right. Well, that would make sense.
They don't grow high. Brussels sprouts grow on stalks.
Brussels sprouts. Now, I only relatively recently knew how Brussels sprouts come into the world, because supermarkets have just recently been selling them by the stalk. Mm-hmm. How weird do they look?
I know they do. And I think the stalks are edible, by the way.
They look like a weapon, like some sort of medieval weapon, don't they?
If they're left to seed, the top turns into a very large Brussels sprouts. It turns into a cabbage-like thing. It's quite interesting.
Really?
No, my uncle used to. Oh, he was a brilliant gardener. Me and my brothers used to go down there all the time to. We were supposed to be collecting the gooseberries, but a lot of them went into our little tummies via our mouths, of course. But he used to grow. Well, I had to. You never know.
What?
Well.
Don't go there.
What? No, they could have gone through a feeding tube in our stomachs or something. You never know. Anyway, right. They grew, as I said, he grew cabbages, greens, kale. I hated kale. It's tough and green and...
Kale, I wouldn't recognise kale if you
it's sort of like cabbage from recollection.
Right.
And there was a fad when I was a kid, and my father used to grow kale, and my father also had a thing about beetroot as well. And every time I came home from school, there was a huge saucepan boiling up from this red bubbly water. Ew! Trust me, if you were presented with beetroot every single day of the week, you would not be very happy.
No.
So they grow on one single stalk close to the ground, but I would assume that if they're left to seed, they would grow a bit higher.
Don't you think that beetroot actually would dye your insides? Because it turns everything it touches red.
Yes, well, it turns urine a shade of red, apparently.
I don't think so.
Yes, it apparently does in some people.
I don't think so.
If you eat a lot of it, it does. It really does.
Okay.
And they say sometimes people say, "Oh my goodness, my pee's gone all funny colour," and they call up the hospital, and one of the things they ask is, "Have you been eating beetroot?" Because it does dye some people's urine.
Right.
Yes, a bit like asparagus makes some.
Yeah, asparagus. I don't think asparagus is actually worth the smell, is it? It's not that great to
I don't
taste.
like asparagus, but I did like something called samphire. It grows out in Lincolnshire, just on the sort of the moory bits next to the sea, and it's grown in very secret places, and because people like to nick it, And my ex-husband and his partner, he edited a movie for his partner about samphire, and it tastes very much like asparagus, but it's nicer.
A movie about samphire?
Well, it's a movie, a sort of documentary. He always talks about movies when he edits things.
Right, well, you let me know when that one comes out, and
no, this is years ago.
I'll make sure I don't watch it, yeah.
But it was a lovely thing. They were out there collecting the samphire, and it's in such a secret place. They were literally sworn to secrecy.
Why, is it expensive?
Yeah, it's very difficult to get hold of.
All those things that are expensive are considered delicacies, taste awful.
I've never tried truffles.
Like caviar. Well, actually, truffles is pretty good.
I've seen black potatoes. They're truffle potatoes, but I've never eaten truffles. No.
Yeah, I had once. I had to share a plate of truffled pasta with somebody at a restaurant because it was so expensive.
Well, tell me what it tastes like.
It was fabulous.
Well, tell us what it tastes like.
It was unctuous and yummy. That's all I can tell you.
Unctuous and yummy. Did it have a sort of a foresty taste?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. A bit like...
It was like... yeah, it was like licking a forest.
Licking so mushroomy, woody, mushroom-ish.
Exactly right. Precisely so, yeah.
Fabulous. Oh, tell us more. We want to know what the rich...
The caviar tastes awful. Foie gras doesn't taste very nice. That's just like eating fat.
Well, it is. Yes, it is.
And asparagus, I really don't understand the point of asparagus.
No,
Everybody starts hyperventilating. It's asparagus season, and what is it? It doesn't really taste very much, and it makes your pee smell.
Somebody can probably call in and tell you the best way to eat it. Apparently, very, very quickly steamed with a little bit of butter.
Yeah, and then you just got...
butter.
Well, yeah, it still doesn't taste that great. Anyway, got to go. Cheers.
All right, take care. Bye.
Yes. This Quango thing is what I was talking about a little while ago. A staggering amount of money. The cost of Britain's hidden state of unelected public bodies has soared to more than £100 billion a year. Critics say the rise of Quangos under Labour has produced wasteful and confusing duplication of roles. If they are taking £1 billion in tax a day, which is a staggering amount, really, and they're spending £100 billion on Quangos, that's a third, isn't it?
If the figures are correct, yes.
£85 million is given to the Carbon Trust to advise businesses and government bodies on becoming low carbon. £22 million is handed to EnviroWise to do exactly the same thing. The Food Standards Agency extols the health benefits of a low-fat diet, yet millions are being spent on food promotion bodies to implore people to eat more chips. And sausages. Is there really an advertising campaign to tell you to eat more sausages? The research in a report by the Taxpayers Alliance, wow, haven't they been busy lately? It says the largely unseen and unaccountable bodies spend £101 billion a year, despite the call for Gordon Brown, when he was Shadow Chancellor, for a bonfire of Quangos. Quite the reverse has taken place. Taking into account public corporations, delivery agencies, government-backed investment funds and non-ministerial departments, there are 1,162 Quangos going. Yikes. The report's author says that ministers are concealing a huge section of government from those who pay for it. So not only does the Carbon Trust, which employs 126 staff and pays Tom Daley, its chief executive, more than £200,000 a year, have a similar remit to the organisation EnviroWise. But there's also a third body, the Energy Saving Trust, which advises homeowners on reducing their carbon footprint. It's got 142 staff, all of whom come by car, I bet you. Quangos often seem at odds with one another, critics say. The Potato Council has a £6 million budget and employs 49 staff. The Potato Council? When are you ever going to forget that potatoes exist?
Well, the school kids you mentioned earlier, they could benefit.
While other arms of the government warn the public not to eat too many fatty foods such as chips, the Potato Council is marketing a National Chip Week. Oh, truth. Talk about not joined-up government. Because they are insulated from proper scrutiny, Quango bureaucrats are rarely made to pay the price for failure. The result is that many do the same thing, in effect, while others operate at cross purposes. £100 billion. Like I said, take a third of the money that you pay in tax and set light to it. Or, if you get really hungry, eat it. Because there will be food wars shortly. High food prices are here to stay, and the world needs a green revolution to feed its rising population, the senior humanitarian official at the United Nations has said. Structural changes in the global economy are causing the sudden rise in food prices, and it's... The problem is that there's just too many of us. The emergence of hundreds of millions of middle-class consumers in China and India has increased the demand for food. Not just for food, but for everything else as well. They've seen how we live our lives from the magazines that they get over there. And they think, oh, yeah, I'd like some of that. Of course, perfectly reasonable. Why not? We've hoovered up the world's resources to make ourselves more comfortable. Why shouldn't they too? Seems a bit rich to say, well, you know what, would you mind not doing with a flat-screen TV because we're throwing too much CO2 up into the air to feed all these power-hungry gadgets. We're not going to give up ours, but we wouldn't mind if you didn't have yours. The emergence of hundreds of millions of middle-class consumers in China and India increased the demand for food. High oil prices make transporting food more expensive. The supply of grain has been hit by bad weather, and the transfer of land to grow biofuels instead of food crops, which is a uniquely bad idea. I haven't heard anybody say anything positive about the transfer of land to grow biofuels instead of crops, because the resultant deforestation and the manufacture of these sort of monocultures, giant swathes of land are all biofuels, like rapeseed oil and all that sort of stuff. It's actually creating more CO2 than they're saving by using the biofuel in the petrol. And now, of course, it's the law that all the petrol that you buy at the pumps now has got, 5% biofuel in it? Well, it's actually having the reverse effect to that which was intended. They're trying to save the planet, but they're actually ruining it more speedily by insisting that we put biofuels in our cars. Nothing makes any sense anymore. Or am I hallucinating? Gosh, I hope so. With the global population forecast to reach... This is amazing. There's 6 billion people today. By 2050, it'll be 9 billion. How crowded are we now? Very crowded indeed. Half as many people... More than half as many people again. Actually, it's not. It's exactly half. 6. Half is 3. 3 plus 6 is 9. Half as many again. Can you even imagine that? I mean, what's the space of the average flat that's being built now in order to pack more people in because of the ever-diminishing amount of space that we have to live in? I mean, you see old houses around London. You can go to any part of town and you'll see grand old houses. And you think, oh, they've got a lot of space. And then you look at the front door, and there's 15 bells there. People crammed in their tiny little flatlets, with a living room that looks like a corridor, and a bedroom that you wouldn't put a pantry in one of these old houses. It's kind of upsetting, really. I mean, I get a bit dispirited. You walk around, you walk by rows of houses, and they're so tiny, and then you notice that it's not even people have got the whole house. They're either upstairs or downstairs, cramming people into ever smaller space, such that I think a new flat now can be 500 square feet, which is about the size of a car. I exaggerate slightly. But imagine what it would be like with half as many people again. Good grief. I'm going to send some condoms out in the post to everybody. We should start raining them down from planes. The Pope will be upset. It's 8:45. LBC Travel with Helen Austin.
Thanks, Nick. Well, first great weapon.
Fabulous.
It's a text, which you can text, by the way, 84850, from a kidney dialysis nurse. And someone who was raised on beetroot says that beetroot does not dye urine. I've eaten beetroot before. Beetroot is so yummy. And I've never noticed that it dyes urine. The only thing that affects urine, really, is asparagus. It makes it smell really badly, which is weird because asparagus doesn't smell. And another says, I don't know how many units it's got, but I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. that old one. The number, by the way, is 0845 6060 973. If you want to talk about that or anything else that's on your mind, I will read this, it's not a poem really, it's a poem that doesn't rhyme, about what life used to be like not so very long ago in the 60s, 70s and 80s. All of these things have been ruled illegal now, usually due to health and safety reasons. And when this chap read this out, I think it was last week, I had a call from somebody who'd received this by email. This is one of these things that, like pass it on. And I was nodding my head with everything he said and thinking, oh yeah, that's right. We used to do that, and now it's sort of considered completely, you'd be a bad parent if you allowed your children to do these things. And we survived. So I'll read that out a little bit later. I've also got political, comic quotes, and comic quotes from rock stars, if you remind me to do them.
Why don't you do it now?
After the news at 9, I think. Oh, I've displeased him. Oh dear. In America, talking about a lack of food, and a lot of the middle-class papers today were discussing how middle-class families are now feeling the pinch, that the debt crisis is mounting up because people's the amount of money that they have to spend at the end of the month is diminishing rapidly, because you go to the supermarket and the basket of food that did cost 150 quid now costs £200, and you fill your car up and it used to cost you £45 and now it costs you 60. And all of these increases, while the government is telling you that the rate of inflation is 3%, or whatever it is that they're pretending that it is, it's actually way bigger than that. And you come to the end of the month and you ain't got no money anymore. And so people are calling in debt agencies to try and compound their debt so that they pay a smaller amount than if it was all on credit cards. And these things that were restricted to the Jeremy Kyle element of society are now affecting middle-class homes. In America, they've got something called freegans, Freegan. Soaring food prices have led to a growing number of middle-class New Yorkers joining an unusual organisation that dumpster dives in rubbish bins for food. The trash tours form part of a growing movement called freegans, which is rapidly increasing in popularity as New Yorkers find it harder and harder to make ends meet. Freegans, a name derived from the words free and vegan, sift through garbage cans and bin bags in the evenings, looking to find edible food and discarded items such as shelving or kitchen appliances that can be reused. These aren't poor people, these are middle-class New Yorkers who can't afford life anymore. Freegans do not sift through household rubbish. That really is garbage, half-eaten food, old food and so on. But they do through the refuse of New York's fast food businesses such as Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Pret-a-Manger. Hey, Pret-a-Manger, they're making a go of it in America. And the supermarket chains, which I'm not familiar with. The companies tend to put leftover food in black plastic bags on the sidewalk at about 9 in the evening, and about an hour later the garbage men come and take them away. We try to get there first, says one of these freegans. It's not as shocking as it sounds. Once food is in the garbage, it's just a big bag of food. Another freegan, who declined to be named, said, I've always taken 5 or 6 packets of sandwiches on my way home from work from the Pret-a-Manger near the office. In this country, do they not give old sandwiches to homeless people? There's nothing disgusting about it, he says. They are sealed sandwich packets. I put them in my bag, eat one myself, offer them to colleagues or friends, and give them to homeless people on the subway on the way home. I'd do that. I mean, if Pret-a-Manger put a big bag of sandwiches out on the street for the rubbish man to collect, wouldn't you go through them? Or would you find that socially unacceptable? I'd do it. Food is so expensive now, says one, I can't afford not to. I reckon I saved myself about £25 a week from dumpster diving and going through the garbage. One of them said that bananas are a real find. You open the bag and you can't believe what you're seeing. Maybe 100 beautiful bananas that have been thrown out, probably because the store's got a new shipment in, and this lot weren't as fresh. Well, the amount of times I've wanted a banana and all you get is fresh, by which I mean inedible. They're green and rock solid. Over the past 2 years, Americans have had to contend with soaring food and fuel prices triggered by the increasing demand for ethanol, the clean biofuel. This is going to be a real big problem, and for whatever reason, governments seem to be wedded to biofuel. Now, whether it's that they can say, oh, we're actually making a difference, we're going green, and here's the proof, we're, encouraging biofuel, or whether there's some other sort of suspicious, I don't know, they seem so keen on something that all the experts are saying is a bad idea, I'm a bit suspicious about it. Washington has pumped subsidies to American farmers as an incentive to grow grain for producing ethanol, which is made from fermenting corn. As the price of grain rose, because there's less of it, the cost of maintaining dairy herds rocketed, so milk prices have doubled in America. The cost of grain has soared, and the rising price of oil has increased distribution costs for other types of food. It's like a perfect storm. Harvard University claimed that last year Middle America was suffering its worst financial hardship since the 1950s, as families were forced to struggle with rising food and fuel costs, tightening credit conditions, sliding residential property prices, and soaring healthcare premiums. Oh, boo-hoo. They think they've got it bad. In every respect, apart from the last two, sliding residential property prices and soaring healthcare premiums, we've got it much worse than they do. If they had to pay the price of petrol that we do, well, they'd be taking pot shots at the White House, wouldn't they? They'd be queuing up to shoot W. Hampton Court. Hello, Vince.
Hello, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Jolly good. It's just interesting hearing you saying about them going to rapeseed and that for this biofuel. I just kind of think it's all part of this almost circular con that is involving the environment. I mean, to give you an example, and it's something that really bugs me personally, is about like the congestion charge.
Right.
Now, if you run a Toyota Prius, you don't have to pay the congestion charge. All right?
Okay.
That produces 104 grams of carbon dioxide per kilometre.
Right.
I drive a Jag, all right? Mine produces 149 grams per kilometre.
Yeah.
If he does 3 miles to my 2, we produce the same. Yeah, I pay more tax than him. I have to pay to go into London, and he doesn't.
Yes, you pay more in every respect. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And why? I mean, my dad drives a 4-wheel drive. He does 3,500 miles a year. And pays £400 a year tax.
Right, we should be giving him a badge, not what is essentially amounts to a fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think this is, again, it's circular, isn't it? Like you were just saying, if they're going to be growing biofuel in all the fields, where's everything else going to come from? Prices are just going to rise.
Well, yes, because there's less ground that's producing food.
Exactly. So all it is, again, is just, and again, it'll be taxable. It's just another way of hitting Middle England again. The same way as you can actually use vegetable oil to run a diesel car. And they've now changed the law. You can apparently use 2,000 litres a year as long as you that, in your tax forms, etc. But, the reason they don't do that is just purely they can't get the tax on it. So they're going to tax this, and everything else is going to rise.
You can start a diesel car with just ordinary vegetable oil.
Yeah, apparently you do have to put an additive to it of some sort. But yes, you can run a diesel car on vegetable oil. And now it's apparently legal that as long as you keep the receipts, you can use 2,000 litres of vegetable oil a year. I don't know if you can confirm that, but I have heard that you can legally do that now.
Right, but you'd have to be sitting in a diesel car. You'd have to be sitting in an automobile that sounds like a Thames barge, wouldn't you?
Well, mine doesn't sound like a Thames barge.
Really? A Jaguar? What kind of Jaguar is a diesel?
I've got an X-Type diesel.
Oh, right.
And you can't even hear it. It's no different to petrol.
Well, I'm prepared to be convinced, Vince. I'll stand by a Jag diesel next time
I'm sitting in it now, Nick.
Because every time a diesel comes behind me, I turn around hoping that it's a cab.
Well, I'm in it now.
Right.
I don't think you could hear it.
Is it switched on?
It's switched on, yeah.
Rightio. Are you driving along?
I am, but I'm on hands-free.
Of course. I wasn't going to ask. I was just going to assume.
Of course I am, yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks very much for that, Vince. Cheers.
Nick.
The number is 0845 6060 973. If you'd like to text, then I'd like to get it. 0845 84850 is the number. LBC.
If the chip in your windscreen...
Everything is going extremely well.
A greasy print. Weybridge, hello, Nikki.
Good evening, hello.
Hey, Nikki, you're so fine, blah, blah, blah. Hey, Nikki.
Yes, that's me. Yeah, no, I was just ringing, I just switched the radio on, and just remembering a few years back there was an episode of, well, it's probably last year actually, Wife Swap. Don't really want to admit I watched it, but I did. And this lady, she's fairly posh, and she they swapped over with the States, and she was dumpster. Is it dumpster diving?
Dumpster diving, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was quite funny watching that, sort of watching her going in sort of head first, and then just the legs hanging out at the top.
And was she a posh lady?
Yeah, she was quite. Yeah, she wouldn't do it at first. She couldn't believe what they were doing, and you know, they would find their food for the week, really.
But no, were the people in America who were encouraging her to dumpster dive, were they posh?
Well, not really, no. I think they lived in like a caravan or one of the trailer type places, so I think they sort of fitted the bill,
right,
so to speak, but she didn't. But eventually she did, which she was head first with them as well.
Getting stuck in.
Yeah.
Good for her.
She disappear into. They used to come back with food for the week and stuff. So, you know, they did save a lot. Which a few years back, I worked for a company where we did used to save the food, and like a homeless company would come round late at night and pick them all up.
Yeah.
But eventually, they used to pour sort of like a blue dye over all the food so it wouldn't be edible.
Why?
If anybody had tried to take the food after the store had closed, it would basically be completely...
Why did they do that?
Well, because it's been written off, and that was it. That's, you know, it's food that's been written off, and so they're not going to get any comeback on it. So they used to just pour dye into the bags with bread and loads of other bits and bobs and food, and just destroy it, really.
Well, that's awful.
It's awful. Yeah, I know. It's just, you just think anybody, you know, it could be given to anyone. I mean, they were stuff with, you know, they hadn't had their expiry date or their best before date. They just hadn't sold, so they just destroyed them.
That just seems really mean. Unless there's some sort of a hidden agenda here, and they don't want to be sued by somebody who finds their food on the street and then says, "Oh, this didn't taste very nice."
Yeah.
But that's ludicrous, though. I mean, if any court in the land would accept that complaint, I mean, this country really has gone insane.
So it has. That's sort of like the red tape. I thought, well, you know, the friendly wino around the corner on a park bench comes and complains that he's got a stomach bug or whatever, and it's come from eating the stuff in the bin.
But that can't be. I mean, really, logically, if we're thinking about it sensibly, that can't possibly be what they were worried about.
Well, but they just said insurance purposes it's not worth their while trying to, you know, offer it to people kindly. It's much better to just destroy it, and it's not edible, so if anybody did take it, it was down to them that they've eaten it, and it's their responsibility what happens to them.
Isn't that terrible?
It is just waste. It's just consumerism for you, at the moment.
All right, thanks for that, Nikki.
Thank you.
That seems to be the way that that we treat waste food in general. Not just food that's wasted, just food we'll throw away and destroy so that nobody else can eat it, including African countries where they're dying for want of food, rather than release a lot of food onto the market and potentially depress prices, which is what a lot of this sort of common agricultural policy, or whatever it's called right now, was all about, in order to maintain profits for farmers. And I'm not talking about a farmer leaning against the gate with a piece of grass in his mouth, not that kind of farmer. No, great conglomerates who own vast swathes of the world and are one of the 4 or 5 companies that make all of our food. Actually, when you trace back where all the food comes from, there's so few companies that are actually making it, it's a bit scary. I mean, if you fall out with one food company, you've got precious little else on the shelves to choose from. All of those companies that are competing with each other, or the brands that are competing with each other for shelf space and space in your shopping basket, they're all made by the same company. Same with the soap powders. Buy our soap powder. It'll clean you whiter and make you smell more nice than that horrible soap powder that's next to us on the shelf. And both powders are made by the same company. Isn't that terrible? Barnett and Mirelle Marbell.
Hello, Nick. Good evening.
How you doing?
Hi. I feel a bit stupid asking this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Okay. I need some advice from your listeners. I don't feel stupid asking that.
You're so stupid.
Yeah, no, that came across wrong. I'm looking for bird fanciers of the feather kind.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been filling up my bird feeders. I've got my peanuts and my sunflower seeds, my fat balls and my water.
Right, no bread, I hope.
No bread, because that attracts the rats. But, now...
I thought it killed them. I thought there was something in the papers recently. You can't feed bread to birds because it will make them explode.
Really?
I exaggerate slightly, but
Okay.
you have to give them cake, apparently. It's like, it's the Marie Antoinette regime.
Let them eat cake.
Mm.
Anyway, so on LBC, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about robins, and I'm sure it was a guy from the one of the bird sanctuaries.
Yeah.
And he said that robins like cheese.
Really?
Yes, I know.
That's coincidental. I like cheese.
I know, so I've got a chunk of cheese hanging on a branch.
I'll be over after the show.
Yeah, and I feel a bit stupid because it looks ridiculous.
What kind of cheese?
Cathedral City, mild cheddar.
Cathedral City.
It's, it's a brand, sorry.
Oh, without mentioning any brand names, Cathedral City,
Other
yes.
cheeses are available. And I'm looking at it, and it's a block of cheese, and it's hanging on a branch.
Yeah.
And it looks ridiculous. And if it's a wind-up, I'm going to feel a fool.
Well, it's like one of these cheese trees.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It'll start growing little branches soon. But if it attracts the robins, that'll be great.
Right.
I'm sure it was somebody official, and it wasn't on the 1st of April. I know, I was thinking about that before I put it up, but I'm sure...
How could that possibly be true, though? I mean, where in nature are robins going to find cheese?
Well, the way we chuck rubbish around, I would have thought everywhere. Well, it's full of, this is getting worse as I'm speaking. It really was an official person on your station. I'm sure of it. I really am sure of it.
Oh, well, if it was an official person, Morel.
It's something to do with, because people leave out everything for birds now, and they've just got used to it.
I find that hard to believe, because as we haven't really got used to the diet that we feed ourselves. I mean, every now and again, every few months or so, some nutritionist will say, well, what we should actually be eating in order to live forever, and learn how to fly, fame, is a caveman diet. Eat berries and nuts and fruit and vegetables and a little bit of meat every now and again. And then you won't be dying of cancer all the time. But what we're actually feeding ourselves are vast amounts of meat, which as a caveman you didn't have access to because you had to go and run after the wildebeest or whatever it was. You couldn't just pop down to Sainsbury's. And, found foods like that grow on bushes.
I know.
That's what it's supposed to be eating, but we're eating, chips and all this saturated fat and...
Well, it tastes nice.
Well, exactly right. But it's not doing us any good, and our bodies haven't adjusted to our new diet, which is why we're, giant wobbling balls of fat.
You know what they were saying? Now, this is on LBC as well. Okay, they were saying that people that are obese are causing the problems, right, of a lot of the food sources.
Well, I did laugh about that. I don't believe that's true at all.
No, because thin people can eat just as much. They just burn up the food quicker.
Exactly.
So it's rubbish. And also, quickly before I go, Nick, supermarkets, not naming any.
Was it Tesco's? Waitrose?
No, not naming any.
Netto? Lidl?
As well as charging us for, say, a bottle of wine, they charge the company to put the brand wine on the shelves.
I would not be surprised.
I found that from an inside source. So if you find there's one or two brands of wine taking up the whole shelf, that company have paid the store for the right to put the brand on the shelf, as well as us paying to buy the wine.
Wow.
And that's supermarkets for you.
Evil.
They're terrible. evil. Get rid of a lot of them. Hang them.
Yeah, but so convenient and cheap, which is what we demand. That's right. All right, thanks for that, Morel.
Thank you, Nick. Bye.
Ta-ra. 0845 6060 973. I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised if supermarkets were on a kickback to put certain items in certain places, because the psychology of supermarkets is a study unto itself. If you place things at eye level, they're much more likely to be bought than if you place them on the shelf down. And so all of those products that are on the display at eye level are presumably the ones with whom the supermarket has the best relationship. Now, that just might mean they get a discount, or they're actually being paid to put them there. I bet there's a whole raft of evilness that hasn't yet been uncovered about how it is that we buy our food. And you know whose fault it is? That's right. Our fault. We're the ones that insist that everything must be as cheap as it possibly can be. We're the ones that are putting farmers out of business because we don't want to pay an extra 2p on a pint of milk. It's not the supermarket's fault. It's our fault. 9:15. LBC Travel with Helen Austin.
Thank you, Nick. Well, 2 lanes...
Absolutely. Clive Bull will be in about 15 minutes. We'll have a chat about what he's going to be doing on the show tonight. First in his call in Romford, Glenn.
Good evening, Nick.
Hey, Glenn.
I'm not an economist, as you're about to find out, but farmers will become the new billionaires and will be buying football clubs in a few years. The reason for that is, I'm trying to work this out as I'm going along, so forgive me if it's got some holes in it, but if a farmer grows 100 quid's worth of rapeseed, for whatever they do with it,
right.
The government take 17.5% VAT
Yeah.
on the profit, so that's 17.5 quid. If they grow it and convert it into fuel, the government take 70% of that 100 quid, plus the 17.5% VAT. So in the end, the government are going to be wanting people to... Because, I mean, the one thing that's going to happen with fuel is it's never going to get any cheaper.
No.
Although people will cut down on the amount of food they eat every week, they can't cut down on fuel by and large because most people use it for the simple fact that they've got to get to work.
Yeah.
So the government are going to be encouraging farmers to grow more of this rapeseed stuff for conversion into fuel than they're going to worry about people actually growing food for conversion into food for people in this country.
I hadn't really thought about that. Another thing that I hadn't thought about, as you were saying that, was that now that 5% of petrol is this biofuel, the amount of tax hasn't been decreased by 5% on the petrol that we're consuming. So now they're taxing us the same on whatever this biofuel is.
Mm-hmm.
What is it exactly?
But it's exactly as that fella said. It's an oil that you cook with that you can put into a diesel.
Okay.
Into a diesel engine, apparently. Not that I know anything about.
So they're now taxing us at 70% or close to on oil that grows on pretty flowers as they are on petrol. Shouldn't there have been a decrease of 5% in the amount of tax that we pay on petrol? Because now 5% isn't petrol anymore.
Well, I suppose in the same way that we've all accepted the £5.50 gallon as being a fait accompli now, it's never going to get any cheaper, and the only thing it will do is get more and more expensive as time goes by. The government aren't worried about it because we aren't going to twig it, and even if we do, what are we going to do about it?
Well, yeah, exactly right.
The thing is, all of a sudden so now you've got a decrease in housing prices and housing land. The new rich are going to be the farmers because farming land is going to go through the roof. You can have people growing rapeseed oil on their allotments and their roofs because of the amount of money it's worth. There's a cash crop.
Actually, that's already started to happen, and that sort of phenomenon has been going on for a little while now. People with a lot of money in the city are tending to buy farms because I think with farms, now this bit gets a bit complicated, with farms comes a tax relief. You actually get paid money to own a farm, even if you don't do anything to the land.
Yeah, you get something called set-aside.
Exactly. Yeah, and you also get a reduction in the amount of tax that you have to pay. Now, I'm not entirely sure about this, but it's one of the two, that you either get a reduction in the amount of tax that you pay on your income, or you can pass on more income on a death benefit on your death without it being taxed so much. It's like a workaround in the tax laws if you own a farm, and so the price of farming land is racing ahead because people with a lot of money who have no interest in farming are seeing it as a good dodge. And so these, all these criminals who work in the city that are sort of the engine of the economy, all these people that are whispering advice on buy this share and buy that share, all the insider dealing people, all of those who are whose finances aren't troubled by the cost of food like the rest of us. They're not buying houses in Chelsea anymore. They're buying farms because with it comes great financial benefits.
Well, they are. Well, I can chew straw. I like sheep. Sheep don't eat rapeseed oil. I'm going to become a farmer.
There you go.
Cheers, Nick.
Just as long as you get off my land. Thanks, Glenn. 0845 6060 973. I promise, do this thing about what life used to be like in the 60s, 70s and 80s. All of these things that we used to do as kids, which are now against the law. I also will do the political quotes and rock quotes. If you remind me, James. You will remind me, won't you? Chertsey. Hello, Tony.
Hi there, Nick.
Tony.
About biofuel and using vegetable oil in diesel engines.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about that.
Go on, then.
I've been using vegetable oil. In fact, used vegetable oil without much treatment apart from leaving it lying around so all the bits float to the bottom, or rather descend to the bottom.
Yeah.
And the additive that your previous caller was talking about is only normal diesel. You don't need anything apart from normal diesel, and you can cut it to about 60%. So 60% vegetable oil and 40% diesel.
And where are you getting this vegetable oil from?
Well, I get it from a local wine bar, but any restaurant, chip shop, anywhere.
Right, so it's used vegetable oil.
Even used, yeah. You can buy it new, fresh from, ideally from a cash and carry.
Yeah.
You can then get 25 litres for about £10. But you've got to pay VAT on that, so it's a little more. But even so, I'd say you can get price per litre down to about 50 pence, which is pretty reasonable, I think.
Yeah. In what sort of vehicle are you using it?
Well, I'm using it in a Ford van, but it's effectively a modern diesel. There's no difference in this to any other diesel. In fact, did you know, Nick, that I can't remember his first name, but Mr. Diesel invented his engine with a view to using virtually any oil in it.
Really?
So that's the idea. But that's not quite true with the modern diesel, because injectors are pretty finely tuned mechanical devices. So
I opened the boot of the bonnet of my car. It looks like a modern art masterpiece to me. I've got no idea where even to start.
Well, that's right. Well, the home mechanic can't do a thing with a modern car. You need a computer, or you're buggered.
I need the manual to teach me how to put the window down.
That's right. Well, hasn't your car got a handle, Nick?
A handle? No, we don't have handles. Bizarrely, we sit right next to the window, but we're unprepared to wind it down.
Oh, there you go. So you've got an electric motor and a switch. Just more things to go wrong.
Exactly right, yeah. Whereas in your house, you could be, 20 foot from your window, but you have to actually manually walk over and open it yourself with your own hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah,
Doesn't your van... Sorry, Tony, what were you going to say?
No, go on.
Doesn't your van smell like a chip shop?
Yes, it does. That's out the back, though. If you go round the back of the vehicle, and you can definitely smell that beautiful aroma that chips emit. Oh, it's not so bad, really. You don't smell it inside the vehicle.
You don't.
And it doesn't sound any different. And in fact, you do get slightly more miles to the litre out of it.
Really?
Vegetable oil has got a slightly higher calorific value than diesel. So, it's slightly more efficient. Not much, but you are gaining that way as well.
I think that they're actually having an effect. I started to come around to the idea of buying a car with a smaller engine and buying a diesel, which is just an anathema to me. I would never even considered it before, but
no, right.
It's almost like opting for smaller private parts.
Yeah.
By making your car smaller, isn't it? It's just not something that men want to do.
No, absolutely. I've always wanted an E-Type. Just to go down the road in.
Yeah, I think we know where you're coming from, Tony. Yes.
Sorry, Nick.
I think I know what you're saying, Tony.
Oh,
yes.
Right. Yeah. No, it's been
of all the cars in all the world, the E-Type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. The only distance I've got along that road is a plastic model.
Right. Well, you're way ahead of me.
Oh, right. Have you never built plastic models, have you?
No.
No, right.
But
thought about it.
No, quite. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay, then.
0845 6060 973. Yeah, I think that they're actually getting through to me now. I'm beginning to think that And I was stubborn, heels into the ground about that I'm not going to, in fact, I'm going to trade up to a bigger car with an even larger engine that gets 11 miles to the gallon. I was actually considering buying one of those. To hell with it, I thought. But then, okay. I saw, the first thing was I saw that puffy guy that was going to be President of the United States of America.
Absolutely.
What's his name?
Gore.
Al Gore, that's right. And that film, I thought, I mean, some of that he might have made up, but that's a weight of evidence he's just poured in my face. It can't all be wrong. So I thought, yeah, all right, you might be right there. And your only reaction to that information, if it is correct, is we're screwed. So that set me to tipping me towards a smaller, more feminine car. But then the price of of filling it up is just ludicrous. I think I might actually do it. A hatchback. I might as well get Spade.
You could get one of those little tiny things that you can park horizontally or vertically.
Well, something that looks like a wheelchair with a roof.
Yeah.
No, I don't want one of those. They just started delivery in America. I think it's called a Tesla, which petrol heads will love. It's an electric car, but it has the road-going properties of a Ferrari. It's like 0 to 60 in something like 4 seconds. It emits water out of the back. Nothing else. How fantastic is that? You just stick it into the socket when you get home, and it costs something like 10 quid to fill up. And unlike other cars like it, it has like a 250-mile radius before it needs to be filled up again. They only have it in California at the moment, I believe, and they're only leasing it out to celebs. You know, the usual hippie green crowd. Huh?
Groovy.
That's what I thought he said. Like Leonardo DiCaprio and all those tree-hugging types. And they're going to lease this car out. But it looks fantastic. It looks like a proper full-on sports car. It costs 10 quid to fill up the tank, and you can go 250 miles on that tank, and you can travel at something like 150 miles an hour while you're inside it. How fantastic. It makes no noise at all, and has torque. Because it's battery-powered, it's the same battery technology as you use in your mobile phone. A lithium diode, or whatever they call them. Lithium something. And because of that, it only costs 10 quid to fill up, 250 mile radius, it makes no noise, and being a battery powered car, it has massive torque from whatever speed you're going at. Because if you're in a petrol car and you're going at 50 mile an hour, unless it's a really expensive sports car, you stamp your foot on the accelerator and the car thinks about it for a little while and then surges slightly forward. But at any speed that you're going in a battery-powered car, it will launch you forward like a rocket from whatever speed that you're going at the time. I can't wait. They should bring that stuff in straight away. The problem is, of course, and the reason why it's being concentrated in California is there's nowhere to fill up. You can't, at the moment, stick it in a plug in your house. You've got to go to a station, and I believe there's one. So you're limited to Beverly Hills, I think. But that's the future. LBC 97.3. It's 9:30. Here's Clive Ball.
Good evening.
How are you going?
I'm going all right, yes.
Good weekend?
I can't even remember it.
It was chilly.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Very, very cold. Yeah, I had the heating on.
Yeah, we had yes, actually, yeah. All that nice sunshine, it's gone already.
I know.
With the summer has been.
And disappeared.
And
that's
disappeared
right.
again.
It's a long slope down to winter now.
So the question is, looking down at my first topic of the night.
What's the question?
The question is...
I'll know the answer to this.
Okay.
Go ahead, quiz me.
All right, yeah, okay. Well, okay, question number one is, what's the...
Six. Is it 6?
Yes, it is, well done. No, what's the euro against the pound?
Oh, it's close. It's about 60p.
Is it something like that? So people say there's a strong... The euro is strong against the pound, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, which means that people are less likely to go to Europe for a holiday.
Correct.
Apparently.
Correctamundo. Although I very much doubt that people are going to make the decisions based on that. I mean, really, it might be a little bit stronger than it was, but it's not double, is it?
Exactly. So
they do not come out with some rubbish in the papers, don't they?
Yeah. So I thought maybe I'll give you this rubbish, and you tell me whether you think it's right or not.
Yeah.
So you think it's wrong.
Yeah.
But more generally, going further afield, why do you have to go to Europe? You know, you could go to Skegness. You could have a nice holiday in this country.
Yes, that's right. That sounds absolutely lovely.
And what with the credit crunch and all that going on as well, if it actually is, I don't know.
Well, so they say. I mean, on the one hand, they say there is a credit crunch and the property prices are going down, and on the other hand, they say no, they aren't really. It's just the press are talking us into it,
which we now have.
Or
maybe.
Do we?
Or are we still on the brink? I'm not sure.
I think people are going to go to America. They're going to just put up with the fact that they might be held in holding.
And what's the dollar
hours.
like against the pound then?
Excellent question. I'll say $2 to the pound, something like that, isn't it? It's like 1.90.
It normally is something like that. Yeah. So my question really is going to be: are you planning to go abroad, or are you going to have a British holiday?
No.
For a change.
Not now, not ever, never.
You'll love it.
I won't.
Nice caravan
I don't
somewhere.
want to. Don't like it.
Go camping.
No.
You'll love it. Nice cold shower in the morning.
That sounds hideous, doesn't it? I'm going to go to Europe. I don't care how much it costs.
Europe?
Yeah.
And because you want the sun?
No, not necessarily, because I want Europe.
You want Europe. You want the the wine.
Where am I going? Let me give you the hotel name.
Yeah, if you could, would you recommend it?
In fact, let me give you my home address, and then people can just write to me, and I'll tell them where I'm going.
Yeah. We'll all know when you're on holiday.
I'm going to
come round and burgle.
Italy.
Italy. Oh, lovely. Yeah, I've never been to Italy.
Are you kidding?
Ever?
What?
No. It's the one country I do want to go to.
I'll tell you what,
I haven't been.
It's the only country in Europe you want to go to.
Yeah.
It beats every other country in Europe, hands down.
Which is the best place to go first?
Well, if you've never been to Venice, go to Venice.
Yeah.
It's like, you've seen the pictures in the National Gallery.
I mean, it looks fantastic.
It's like walking into a Canaletto. It's just exactly like that. I laughed out loud when the boat turns the corner into the Grand Canal, and this scene is before you with hundreds of gondolas and boats, and I just laughed out loud. I couldn't believe it, because it looks exactly like it did 200-300 years ago. You've got to go.
Yeah, okay. Well, there we are, you see. You've sorted out my holiday plans. We might not talk about it now, because that's where I'm going, and that's
We've
that's
beaten
my
it to
plans.
death already.
Yeah,
you haven't got any air yet.
Yeah, I know. And also, I thought of you today when we heard about the adverts for alcoholic units.
Oh, yeah.
That people are drinking too much. I thought, Nick Abbott.
I am not.
No. I thought of you because you told us about this units and why they're all wrong anyway. Which I thought was very reassuring.
Quite possibly, yes.
Yeah.
I do know that it is a certainty.
Well, it was a convincing story that you told me.
Well, it's a certainty that different countries advise different amounts.
Right.
Like the Japanese, they're smashed all the time, and with the really? Okay of the government.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think ours are one of the lowest.
Yeah.
Bizarrely, we're one of the most drunk countries in the world.
Your theory that you told me that it's based on asking questions of people who've already come in with alcoholic problems, and they always underestimate.
Well, have you been honest when your doctor asks you how much you drink?
No, probably not.
No, me either.
No, exactly. So, I think there's something in that.
Right.
So we needn't worry too much. Thanks very much.
I'll drink to that.
Okay.
Thanks, Clive. Clive coming in after the news at 10 o'clock. Here is call in Wallington. Oh, Joan.
Hello, Nick.
Joan.
Well, it sounds all very nice, these electric cars coming in and saving us all on petrol. But I thought we were being told to save on electricity.
Well,
I thought they were saying get those everlasting bulbs because it would save on your energy and turn things off all the time to save on electricity. So what's going to happen if we start driving electric cars?
Well, the thing is, Joan, we can produce electricity in this country. We have to go to hostile territories to get oil, go and deal with people that, in the best possible circumstance, we wouldn't ever have to chat to.
Yeah, but the people that own our electricity companies are not British.
Well...
So, are they then going to say, wow, we've got hostages now? We can charge anything we like because they're all depending on us now.
Right. Well, there is something to be said for what you say. However, I would rather take my chances with the electricity companies than, have to deal with you-know-who.
Well, I don't know. If it was a British company, I'd say, well, it can be bad because the money's going back into Britain and all that stuff. But if they're nothing to do with us, why should it be, any worse than an oil company?
Well, for the reasons that I've previously explained. If your electricity company was owned by a French company, for instance, then I'd rather do deals with the French than with Saudi Arabia, for instance. I mean, the French are considerably nearer us in our way of thinking than the Saudi Arabians, who've just given a guy 150 lashes and 8 months jail for having a coffee with a woman who wasn't his relative. Not a coffee back at his place, not would you like to come back and I'll give you a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
In public, in a coffee shop.
And by the way...
Yeah.
Talking about the French...
Right.
You know how they always say in this country we're binge drinkers, isn't it so terrible? And they say the French know how to drink, and they're very sensible about their drinking, and nothing is wrong about their drinking.
That's right.
Tosh, tosh, tosh.
Is that what they
I
drink?
was talking to some French people recently, and they said it's absolutely not true. They said they're having huge problems with binge drinking in Paris, in other cities. Yeah.
What, English tourists binge drinking in Paris?
No, French people.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I don't think that's
true. The same culture
true.
is coming up there as been coming up here.
Well, I suppose, the modern world knows no boundaries, yes, but in general, the French don't stand up at a bar and neck pints like we do. They sit down.
Well, they do now. Evidently, that is what they do now.
I don't think that's true of all French people. I'm certain that's not the case.
Well, not all. No, but then it's not all English people or British people that are doing this. It's a certain group of people that go out, and that's what they're out to do of an evening.
Well, they probably saw it on British television.
Oh, that's what
it's our fault. No, I was recently in France, and I think it's absolutely true that the French don't stand up and neck pints. They don't. In general, Joan, this is absolutely true.
Yeah.
They sit down and they drink wine with a meal, a little snack. Snack.
Well, it's going the other way. It is going the other way with them because, I say, these were French people. They weren't saying, oh, yes, we're over here, we're much better than you. They were saying, no, we've got the same problem. Mostly at the weekends, we've got the same problem. And if you look back, by the way, years and years ago, this is before the drink culture really got big, before it was all over the supermarkets and saying, everybody should be drinking wine, before we did it as norm. All we heard was that there was a terrible lot of liver disease in France. And that was a real problem in France,
really?
Liver disease.
Well, you might be making that up, Joan.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
By the way, we have had a drinking problem in this country for as long as drink exists. I mean, go back to Hogarth's times, Gin Lane.
Don't go back to Hogarth's times. That's a bit expensive.
We've been falling over drunk for as long as we've existed in this country.
Well, we always thought that in Ireland it was worse than here.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, because I come from Northern Ireland, not Scotland, by the way. Because pubs were meant to be just places where you stood and drink, whereas when we came to England, it was, isn't it nice in England? Because a pub is a nice place to sit, it's got a bit of atmosphere, you might have a little snack, and so it was a very different thing. So we thought it was all very civilised over here compared to a pub in Ireland, where very few certain people would go to a pub at all.
Really?
Yeah, that was...
I'd assumed that they were exactly the same.
No.
So Ireland is a much more...
lovely pubs in Ireland now,
But you're saying that Ireland is a much more stripped-back drinking experience.
Yeah.
That they just, it's like...
it was for people to go and get drunk.
Right,
it wasn't a question of going and having a nice, chatty evening.
Right, no dartboards.
But there are some very nice pubs where you get music and everything else, Well, not everything else. Sorry about that.
Not everything else. Well, they're not that big. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Oh, I did not know that. It's like an education, this show, ain't it?
Yes, and I'm probably telling you everything wrong. You didn't believe a word I said.
Well, I don't know. You're just you're flapping your gums at me, Joan.
I am not.
I don't know how much of it is actually
no, it's
true.
Absolutely true.
Okay,
Even
then.
if I can't remember it, but it is absolutely true.
Right.
Yeah. And as well as that, talking about people in Ireland. Well, I had what scared me in my life, in my young life, was that I had an uncle and 2 cousins who basically died of alcoholism.
Right.
And they actually did get disease, liver, from what started as social drinking. And, you take it a bit seriously after that.
Well, I suppose so, but there is always this thought that won't happen to me.
Yeah, there is that.
I think there's a certain age before which you assume that, despite all evidence to the contrary, you're not actually going to die. And I think that age is around about your mid to late 40s. And then you think, oh, wait a minute.
It could be.
I'm reading people dying of natural causes in the newspaper, and their age is close to mine.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, wait a minute, this whole death thing, this might actually affect me.
Yes, one of these days. It is funny, though. You do think, yeah, it's happening to those people, but I don't know, I can escape that.
Exactly. And with that comes immunity to all diseases like that. No, I shall continue to drink, comfortable in the knowledge that
you'll die. That's okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, Joan, if I didn't drink, and if I exercised every day, and if I went to bed at 10 o'clock, and I only ate vegan food, I'd die anyway.
Anyway, boredom.
Yes. Yeah. Joan, I've got to go. Cheers, my dear. 0845 6060 973. It's 9:45. LBC Travel with Helen Austin.
Thanks, Nick. Well, good news.
Come on, we're running late!
The text number, by the way, is 84850. I've had some in about some of the things that we've been talking about. One of which was the car, this Tesla car, which I believe costs about 200 grand. Something like that at the moment. So it's about on a par with an expensive, like a top-range Ferrari or something like that. And about the batteries that go in it, this chap, Tony, said the batteries in the car, lithium polymer, cost about £250,000 at present. So that would mean that they're selling the car at a loss. Can't actually be that expensive, because if the battery alone was 250 grand, then the car would be about £500,000. Unless they are selling it at a loss, because aren't one of these hybrid cars being sold at a loss in order to increase the profile, to greenwash the company that makes it? Because it's an enormously expensive thing to make a car with essentially 2 engines. It's also, by the way, a very polluting thing to do, because I think most of the pollution, I'm not entirely sure about this, but I'll say it as though I'm confident, and you'll accept it as a fact. Most of the pollution caused by a car in its life is produced in the manufacture. That sounds plausible, doesn't it? Does it sound like I just made that up?
Yeah, it kind of does.
Not really. That's entirely plausible. I read that once. I don't know whether it was true. I read it.
Did you write it and then read it back to yourself?
Here's another one. Good evening, Nick. I worked at a shop, and it is indeed true that companies pay to get their products on the shelf and pay good money too. Also notice how value products are placed at the bottom and pricey ones at eye level. That's just part of the evil way in which supermarkets are manipulating us. I wonder how much sort of widespread that is, that the products that are more visually obvious are there because the manufacturers of those products are paying the supermarkets to put them on that shelf. I think the same could be true of the sweets that surround the tills of your local newsagents. I'm quite certain that the chap with a briefcase full of sweets who goes around to these places and sells them, the sales team, would offer inducements to get the little shop owner to put the, whatever it is, the little chocolate-covered snacky bombs, or whatever they are, right next to the till where the kids can see them. Very suspicious. Because every now and again, like a seasonal product will come out with a big marketing push, and it'll be right there, right in front of you as you're fiddling with your change. He's practically giving you the change over the little display box of the sweets that just coincidentally happen to have a big advertising push on at the moment. And the bloke who runs the newsagents hasn't changed his shop in 20 years. Nothing in there has moved around, apart from the order of the sweets that are in front of the till. I mean, you look around, he's still got the same dusty old Jiffy bags, 28p on the shelf, and, a sellotape, all of that stuff. So they don't change the shop around in order to make its appearance more attractive. They do it because there's money in it. About birds, robins eat cheese. My aunt used to have a robin and have it eat out of your hand. But apparently not Stilton, somebody else said. So don't have... Stilton would just crumble and fall off a tree if you tried to hang it on it. So, harder cheese, please. And food is not offered from stores anymore because of European law. I volunteer in hospice kitchens, and shops used to give us food, but now they're not allowed to. Isn't that insane? The whole world's gone crazy. I know that Pret-a-Manger used to, or they used to say that they gave all of their sandwiches at the end of the day to homeless people. And many's the time I've been just too late and starving, and I can see the sandwiches on the shelves as I'm rattling the door. It's shut in my face. And all I want is for them to open. I don't want a coffee. I don't want you to get your machines dirty. I just want that sandwich there that you're going to throw out. But, oh, no, we can't do that. 6:02. And I was comforted by the fact that they were going to give them to people who are starving to death. But now they're just going to throw them away because of European law. That's insane. Why? Oh, health and safety, mate. Well, how healthy and safe is it to starve to death on a cold street? Nothing makes any sense to me anymore.
I'm reminding you.
Yes, which is sort of the subject of this piece that was read by a chap who called in about a week or so ago. And as I heard it, I was nodding in agreement with every single thing he said. It's one of these things that gets sent around by email, and you pass it on to your friends, and everybody just tuts with mild annoyance and carries on with their lives. According to today's regulators and bureaucrats, those of us who were kids in the 60s, 70s and early 80s probably shouldn't have survived because our baby cots were covered in brightly coloured lead-based paint, which was promptly chewed and licked. We had no child-proof lids on medicine bottles, or latches on doors, or cabinets, and it was fine to play with pans. When we rode our bikes, we wore no helmets, just flip-flops and fluorescent spokey-dokies on our wheels. Spokey-dokies? What's that, then? We used to put cards that would clack on the spokes of the wheels. If you put a card, like an actual playing card, to the fork of the front wheel, and you're looking at me like you'd never done this before, and you point it into the wheel, it would clack on the spokes of the wheel as your wheels went round, in order to make more noise. Why we wanted to do that, I have no idea. As children, we would ride in cars with no seatbelts or airbags. Riding in the passenger seat was a treat. I can remember riding in my uncle's car. I think it was one of those cars that... Do you remember cars used to have an indicator that lifted out from the side of the car? It's like a piece of plastic, about 6 inches long, that actually flipped out from the side of the car. I think the car was made of wood at the time. As we went around a corner, as we were turning right, and I was in the passenger seat, the door flew open. And, of course, the centrifugal force would propel you out of the door. And it was only because my uncle grabbed a hold of me that I didn't fly out. Seatbelts? What are they, then? We drank water from the garden hose and not from a bottle, and it tasted the same. We ate chips, bread and butter pudding, drank fizzy juice with sugar in it, but we were never overweight because we were always outside playing. We shared one drink with 4 friends from one bottle or can, and nobody actually died from this. We would spend hours building go-karts out of scraps and then went top speed down the hill, only to find that we'd forgotten the brakes. After running into stinging nettles a few times, we learned to solve that problem. We would leave home in the morning and could play all day, as long as we were back before it got dark. No one was able to reach us. No one minded kids going about without a mobile phone, not at the parents' beck and call all the time. They got no idea where we were. We were out fishing or riding about or mucking about with our mates, playing Cowboys and Indians, or whatever it might be. I'll show you yours. You know, those games. Parents had no idea where we were. We did not have PlayStations or Xboxes, no video games at all, no 99 channels on TV, no videotape movies, no surround sound, no mobile phones, no personal computers, no DVDs, no internet chat rooms. We had friends. We went outside and found them. That's extraordinary that that entire list didn't exist, but even like 10 years ago. We played rounders and conkers, and sometimes got hurt. We fell out of trees, got cut and broke bones, but there were no lawsuits. We had full-on fistfights, but no prosecution followed from other parents. We played knock on the door and run away, and were actually afraid of the owners catching us. We walked to friends' homes. We also, believe it or not, walked to school. We didn't rely on mummy or daddy to drive us to school, which was just around the corner. We made up games with sticks and tennis balls. We rode bikes in packs of 7 and wore our coats by only the hood. The idea of a parent bailing us out if we broke the law was unheard of. They actually sided with the law. Seems like a fantasy land now, don't it? There you go. I actually got through it. You've got 10 seconds to tell us what we talked about today.
Zimbabwe, China, food shortage, Pete Doherty, David Beckham throwing up, continuity announces alcohol-free lager, Royals behaving badly, Blair's expenses shredded prison, Mugabe back with Z by gum, booze, Mr. Freeze's cabbage, beetroot, truffle pasta, caviar, quangos, population such double freegans,
Oh, LBC.